Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the week, and welcome back to your Daily Detroit, where the sun is shining on the city, but clouds are over a number of Detroit Lions fans after a loss over the weekend that I think stunned some folks. Today's episode is going to be a lot about that, because I don't think this was the game people were expecting. You know, it wasn't the game I was expecting. Even if we had lost in a different way, I would have felt a bit better. But we're going to look at the positives and the negatives with none other than Fletcher Sharpe. How are you, man?
You ever see, one of those superhero movies and it's like, oh man, that guy's acting like somebody else, and it ends up like it's an imposter of that hero? That's what I felt like I saw on Sunday. The Packers played like the Lions of last year, where they just literally pushed them around. You expected the Lions, all the hype coming into the season, all the hype coming in whatever, everyone saying, it's Green Bay, we hate Green Bay sucks. And they came into that game really, really flat. And that's concerning. I know I'm not someone who's like one of those doomers, like the season's over. I saw some fans saying that. I am not saying that. The season is not over. There are 16 more games for sure. However, the problems that I saw are concerning, because a few of them are still problems from last year, and you thought they'd be fixed when they had the full roster, and that's clearly not the case right now.
So how much of this is the Lions having trouble, which they did, but also the Green Bay squad seemed a lot sharper than last year, which is something that you actually predicted on this very show?
I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. The Packers routinely put out a quality squad, even when they don't make the playoffs, even when they aren't like the best, they still have quality players. And Jordan Love, people have him tabbed as a dark horse for an MVP race. I don't know if I believe that per se, but I do know they'd be better. Typically, young quarterbacks, when they join a system, it takes a time, unless they're just a genius, to acclimate to where the system is. And this is his 3rd year or so. Like he's coming around to actually being the starter and being the guy in Lambeau Field. And you can tell because he's hitting those reads a lot quicker. One thing that did concern me a little bit, the first thing for sure, this is much less on the Packers. I know they got Micah Parsons, and he ended up having a sack at the end of the game. And even before that, he was doing well enough to force pressure. The biggest issue, they could not protect Jared Goff. Like, that is a problem, because if he can't be protected as immobile as he is, he's going to make some bad reads. That's why the Rams let go of him to come to Detroit, was they wanted someone who under pressure could make better reads. And for all of Jared Goff's best stats last year, doing a lot of franchise records, he was one of the best in the league, if not the best, when he had time to throw. But also, he was bottom 5, I think sometimes bottom 3 when you put pressure on him. And the Packers made his day very hard. And as a result, while he did have some great numbers in terms of completions and attempts, not for many yards, and not a touchdown until the end of the game.
Is this a personnel problem?
Kind of, yeah. A lot of people were really harsh on Brad Holmes during this offseason, and I feel like he's helped revitalize this organization, like put new life, breathe new life in there. So I think he's owed a little bit of grace, especially when his draft class has kind of worked out for the most part so far. It's not like he's Troy Weaver and just like continually tanking worse and worse like he did with the Pistons. Like, he's actually doing some stuff. But one thing that I will say that he did not do is add additional pass rushing. They just kind of assumed when Hutchinson came back, he'll just do it again. And the problem with that is before he got hurt, Aiden was on a tear last year. So teams are like, you know what? We're not going to let him be the reason why. And you saw the Packers, they would put a tight end on Aiden, then they'd put their left tackle, they'd chip him with a running back. They made sure he did not get to the quarterback. They said, if anyone's going to cause any sort of pressure, it's going to be anyone else in this defensive line. And they had someone in the city, in Zadarius Smith, who was just around the city, just in the city, wanted to be here, was dating prominent rapper Cash Doll, for sure. And they let him leave to go to Philadelphia, who honestly do not need any more pass rushers. And then it showed how badly they missed the pass rusher when they could barely get Jordan Love to do anything he did not want to do. Any incompletion that he threw was because he just misthrew a ball. It wasn't because they put pressure to him, they made him move his feet too much or anything. It was just, I put too much behind the ball or I took too much off the ball. They were all his own mistakes. So not having the people to put pressure on quarterbacks when they need that was a big thing that happened to them last year. It's why the secondary was so good at points, is because you force quarterbacks to make decisions quicker than they want to make. And if you can't do that, you set your defense up to be picked apart like a shooting gallery.
How much do you buy into head coach Dan Campbell's post-game analysis where he said, hey, we made bad decisions at the wrong time? How much do you buy into that?
Very much so. At the end of the first half, they're running a 2-minute drill to try to get a touchdown and get some momentum back. And Goff makes a quick, terrible read, telegraphed read, and gets picked off and ends all the momentum going into halftime. Yeah, they got the ball back, but it would have been a lot better to get the ball back after scoring at least a field goal or something. Going into the half, 17-6, not good. Not good at all. 17-9, maybe 17-13 or 12, you feel like, all right, we're still in it. At that point, it kind of felt like, oh no. But a few times, a few routes that weren't hit, a few defensive breakdowns where people were not supposed to be open. People got picked off. Terry and Arnold, for sure, was having a decent game until like the second touchdown where he just was getting picked apart. And DJ Reed acclimating to this defensive lineup. Same with Rock Ya-Sin. They had an interception go back for a touchdown, but instead it was a holding call on Ya-Sin, one of the new cornerbacks. And it came back and they went down and scored. So that was like a 10-point swing right there as a result. So yeah, I think there were a few decisions they made with a few things. I think John Morton, this is his first full game as a Lions offensive coordinator. I think he made some pedestrian calls. His offense looked a little bit predictable.
I was going to say, I'm no expert, but looking even just on the TV, I was like, oh, there's going to be a run. If I can see this, the Packers can see this.
I mean, in baseball, pitchers call it tipping their pitches, where it's like this guy slumped his shoulder, a fastball's coming, or he wiggled his toe, a curveball. Like it was, I think I saw a stat where it's like when the Lions went under center, they ran the ball like 74% of the time. Yeah. Telegraph that. Oh, they're under center? Send another guy down there to make the tackle. And the offensive line, not just extending to Goff, but Frank Ragnow, like not being there anymore. Big problem. Same with Zietler not being there. Big problem. Graham Glasgow was serviceable last year. He was okay. He was not the best offensive lineman. Wasn't the worst, but I wouldn't put him in the top 3 of 5. Now he's super important as a center, so he can't have those momentary lapses where he just doesn't. And unfortunately, multiple times with runs up the middle, he had a lot of those lapses where he just didn't. And when you have a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, who's as fast as he is, needs a chance to get to the offensive line before he can do anything, that's not good. Like those little scat backs who like need to get outside, you got to give them a lane to get outside. Because as fast as they are, if they're having to dodge 1 or 2 tackles in the backfield, they're not going much further. This isn't like Barry Sanders. That's like a one-of-one person who can do that. You need to block for them. So the Packers played that super well. They put up enough pressure at the right time to cause the Lions to just discombobulate. And even still, the Lions almost didn't get a touchdown until like one of the last drives where they had to do a few challenges to get Isaac Tesla, Michigan native, his first catch and touchdown. So it's, again, silver lining. There's 16 more games. Season is not over, but coming up against the Bears next, and depending on how their game goes tonight, it could be a little tricky. And after the Bears, you have the Ravens, who they lost 41-40 to the Bills in a game that, as of right now, is the game of the year. Might be the game of the year going into the end of the season. But that offense is terrifying. And if the Lions don't clean stuff up this practice week and against the Bears, Lamar Jackson might break Peyton Manning's record for fantasy points in a football game, in all seriousness.
As you mentioned, the Bears played tonight. We are recording this on Monday morning. So the Bears have the Monday Night Football game. I'm going to have my eye on it because I want to see what we're coming up against. If we go into Chicago and there isn't market improvement, 2 division losses to start the season are a huge red flag and tell me that we need to make some personnel moves, because this isn't like what I saw on that field was the Lions of 2005. That was an awful team, especially on offense. And we should find ways to get some scores. Look, we should expect that the Packers are going to score 10 or 17 points, you know?
Yeah, and this is one of those things where people are like, the defense played great. Yeah, did they give up some passing yards at the end? For sure. That's not great. But the run defense was great. The corners did the best they could. So did the linebackers. But when you don't have any pressure on passing plays, it's a shooting gallery. And Jordan Love, for all of his issues as a gunslinger and things of that nature, if you give him time, he will find a receiver's hands. And like most NFL quarterbacks will. So they got to work on finding a way to generate some pressure. If it means sending extra people, if it means widening out your defensive ends, if it means moving Hutchinson around so he's not just on one side or the other, kind of the way that the Packers did with Micah Parsons, where he'd start on the outside, go to the inside, drop in coverage, come in late, do something to generate pressure, because that can't happen. Jordan Love is a good quarterback. He's not one of the best in the league, but he's fairly good. There are quarterbacks better than him. If you give them that much time, they will throw for literally 500 yards. And that just cannot happen. And the offense has to help the defense by extending drives. You cannot have 4 straight 3-and-outs. You got to start getting some first downs, getting the ball down the field, and not turning the ball over in the red zone. That's like the one place you can't, because it's back-breaking to get all the way down there, lose the ball, and then give up a score right after that. So I trust Dan Campbell's earned enough trust in me now to where if I were a fan of this organization, I would say, you know what? We got next week. Let's see what happens next week. If they go out there, play a hard game, lose, but play a good game, something you can live with. They go out there and give the same performance against the Bears, problems. That's all I can say is problems.
What are you looking at specifically to tune up in the next few days?
The playbook. I mean, that's more of a coaching thing than the player thing, but like the offensive playbook, as we both said, I mean, again, coming from Ben Johnson to John Morton, this is not a slight in John Morton at all. Ben Johnson just has a really kooky playbook that just extends past human, belief at times. So obviously anything that's not that's going to look a little bit vanilla, but like mix some things up. If you're going to struggle on the interior runs, maybe start getting some stretch plays outside. If you're going to not be good on the straight up runs, maybe get a few play action passes, maybe mix in a few screens to try to play off the pressure you're going to be giving up. Something that's going to allow your team to still keep rolling and not like keep getting stuck on 1st and 2nd down and setting up a 3rd and 7 or a 3rd and 8 type of thing. Defensively, generate pressure. I mean, that's really all you can do is generate pressure. And the thing is that this is the part where, like, I'm worried, and I know some people might not be. Last year, they couldn't generate pressure, and we're like, it's because Hutchinson's hurt. It's because they're missing 2/3 of their starting defense. So it's okay. They're just going with, scrap players right now. These are not scrap players right now. This is their full, healthy starting defensive lineup, and they're still generating no pressure. Like, that's the part where I'm like, this is concerning. You have Hutchinson, you have Terrian, you have Branch, and you have Kirby. You have Anzalone, you have Stewart, who you signed from the Texans. You have DJ Reed, you have Rock Ya-Sin in the slot. You have all these players you brought in to make this defense crazy. You have Amik Robertson, the Pitbull. And yet you're still generating no pressure, and they're getting picked apart. So that's where I'm concerned. I don't think it's something you can really fix right now unless you sign somebody. And even still, I don't know who you'd sign. Maybe make a trade, but at this point, you've shown you need pressure. Whoever you trade with is going to walk away with more than they needed to before. Like, they're going to walk away with a much bigger deal.
Okay, I got to ask you a question that I saw a number of listeners talk about. Did the preseason not do our team justice by sitting so many people because we looked so rusty?
I don't think so, because they did actually practice. They did play in scrimmages against other teams. Was it during the actual preseason game? No, but I'm okay with that, because given the fact that in a blowout game last year, they lost Hutchinson for the rest of the season and lost a few more players in very similar ways where games were kind of out of reach. I'm okay with the starters not playing at all. As long as they're doing something, as long as they're at practice. Like, I know training camp earlier was not mandatory, but they all showed up there early to practice. They all showed up. They played in team scrimmages against other teams. It's not like they were just there not doing anything come the whole off season. So I'm okay with that, because they were there, they were practicing, they were doing things. Would I have liked to maybe see them play in at one quarter? Sure, but I understand why, because given the Lions' injury record of last year, you do not want to duplicate that by having them play against some third-string running back from Mount Union University who just wants to try to make anyone's roster, and he cut blocks somebody, and then you watch Anzalone's kneecap shoot out 15 yards. Like, you don't want that to happen if you can help that. So I understand people being like, oh, man, they should have played during the preseason. Maybe, sure. Most likely, that's not really the issue at all. The issue is more on the X's and O's, not really on the people who are the X's and O's.
So do you even have a prediction for next week, or are you going to reserve till later?
I'm going to have to reserve till later, because I have to see what the Bears are doing. They have Ben Johnson to go with Caleb Williams, who is, I think, going to be a really, really good quarterback. He showed at times last year with a very messed up offense. They're going to have a bit more of a smoother offense. I got to see what the Bears do. I got to see what the Vikings do. I'll admit, for a little bit, I kind of got swept up in Lions fever and I wouldn't say certain they would win game one, but I was like, yeah, this might be something, 27 to like 18 or something, like somewhere it's like it's going to be a tight game, but they're going to pull away late. And instead, they got suplexed through the table twice until the last play of the game. So I need to see what's happening before I give an accurate prediction.
Well, as a Lions fan, I hope that they shake this off. I hope that this is cobwebs and not a pattern,
Definitely. Again, as I've said a few times, season's not over. There is 16 more games to go. It's just, this is not the best way to start.
I think that is a good way to put it. With that, we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. You want to share your feelings on what is happening. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.